Kia ora, welcome to Under the Checkered Flag, MotoGP edition. I'm your host Kate, and we're just going to jump right in. So this week was all about testing. It hasn't been a race weekend, but we did have the Misano MotoGP official test. All eyes were going to be on the two Japanese manufacturers because they are so far behind. We have Honda, we have Yamaha, and unfortunately for both, it doesn't look like either of them have made that massive step forward that we were desperately hoping to see for the 2024 bikes so that they could be competitive. Neither team even had an engine there to show their riders. Sure, they couldn't even test it, but if I'm a pilot and I'm, saying that I need to see some results because what this machinery that you're providing me with is just not suitable to ride and be competitive with, I want to see everything you're throwing at this. Yes, we saw we saw quite a few more engineers in that Honda garage than we normally do. We saw fresh faces, but we didn't really see anything else. So I'm really, really hoping that Honda had something to show Joan Mir and Marc Marquez. I hope that behind closed doors they really saw so many more technical aspects, because I know if I was either of those riders, I'd be walking away. And especially Joan Mir. So Marc Marquez has the history with Honda. He's got, the commitment to it. He's got all those championships with them. They were loyal while he was injured, and he is going to want to repay that in some sense. Joan Mir's got none of that. He's just been put on a bike that's absolutely rubbish. Bro is just trying to stay alive at this point and unbroken. I mean, it's an absolute shambles. So, unfortunately, this does leave Honda in a pretty horrific situation. But what it also brings to the forefront of everyone's mind is silly season could get really, really spicy. So Marc Marquez has actually come out and said that he's got 3 options to choose from. Obviously, one of them's going to be staying at Honda. The other one is probably going to be moving over to Gresini Ducati and either purchasing that team or not purchasing that team, but still being on a Ducati next year. The other ones too, who knows? In my head, it'd be forced Dorna to run that third KTM team because I still really want it. I will die on this hill, I swear. Getting a third KTM team would be amazing. Although, again, I do understand why Dorna said no, because we can't have a team trying to stronghold Dorna into something because, that's just a dickhead way of doing things. But then again, that is the way KTM generally Red Bull have gone about things in the past. Them and KTM aren't known for being so nice. I mean, look, one of their riders is about to get absolutely shafted. So, you can understand the mindset of Dorna in that situation. But alas, on to Ducati. So not every rider was riding on the grid. So we saw in the Misano race that Pecco Bagnaia was quite injured from when he did get run over by Brad Binder in the race. So thankfully he did decide to sit out. Enea Bastianini also had to sit out because he was injured as well. And the Ducati test rider, Michael Pero, sorry, I don't know how to pronounce that. It's going to be one I'll look up straight after this and get lots of practice. But he was also out because he crashed when he was wildcarding. So that means that factory Ducati had no riders to do any testing. So it was left up to Jorge Martin, Johann Zarco. I believe Marco Bezzecchi and Fabio Di Gianantonio also didn't do any testing. So it would have just been Jorge Martin, Luca Marini and Zarco on the track, which is actually really, really good for the other manufacturers because having those 8 bikes on the grid, they're already collecting so much data. Having a few less bikes to collect data actually gives the other riders like Aprilia, KTM, time I suppose, to make some grounds, which is so desperately needed. Other manufacturers. Let's go to Aprilia, and I apologise, my dog's just managed to get a hold of a slipper, so if you hear him in the background, that's what it is. He's not mauling anything, it's just an old slipper that I gave him. On to Aprilia. Alicia Spargo tried a new chassis. He didn't say if it was any improvement, but he did mention that it was different. So he mentioned that it handled some things a bit better. He didn't notice the ride being as bumpy or anything like that, so that could be quite a good step forward, I suppose we could say. And Viñales, he mentioned something that I found quite curious, and I suppose that could be what's brought about this change in the chassis. He said that prior to arriving at Aprilia, he didn't realise that tracks could be so bumpy. And so it sounds like this new chassis sort of got rid of that problem, so made the riding a bit smoother, makes the bike absorb more of those bumps in the tracks. But that's just my interpretation of it, so just my idea. However, with Aprilia, it wasn't the factory Aprilia that everyone was talking about. It was Cryptodata RNF rider Miguel Oliveira. So he got to ride the 2023 Aprilia. So if you don't know, the satellite bikes generally run the old machinery. So this year he's running a 2022 machine. His review on the 2023 machine, the 2023 Aprilia that Alicia and Maverick have every weekend, is that is a step forward in every direction. So that's going to be really positive for Miguel, because we've seen him perform so strongly on that 22. Having him on the 23, it's sort of going to be giving him the positive boost he needs to stay in that Aprilia family. Not that there were any indications of him leaving, because he clearly does fit in very well there and perform strongly there. And so this does show that we can expect quite a few good things from him next year on that bike. Admittedly, we should have seen them this year, but he had a very unfortunate run. So that's definitely going to be, I suppose, a talking point to watch. So on to KTM and Gas. Jack Miller had Danny Pedrosa's chassis. So this was rumoured to be carbon fibre, fully carbon fibre rather than just partially carbon fibre. He said not too much about it, mainly because I haven't seen any media reports about it. So I think we can all agree it's probably going to be a step forward, because it's going to be lighter than what they're running already. But overall, for the KTMs, we didn't hear much about them. So I don't know if that's a positive thing. I don't know if that's a negative thing. Only time will tell. But anyone that can try and challenge Ducati, I am rooting for at the moment. Because whether we like it or not, it's a bit of a Ducati Cup. But I'm loving it still, because they put in so much effort and they deserve the results that they're getting. Now, let's go into Yamaha and dive a little bit deeper into them. So, in the morning of the testing, Franco Morbidelli mentioned that he was trying a few different things. So, what was noted in the box was that they tried a new double exhaust. They tried his original aero and the new aero. So, the aero that they ran at the start of the season, and they brought some new aero. They also tried a larger airbox / fuel tank covering, so that's sort of just in between where the riders sit. And one thing that was really interesting in the Yamaha garage was there was a fifth bike, and this bike was covered up. So I'd strongly suspect that this bike is the main bike that they have next year. So it's probably going to contain a new engine, because they can't test that yet. I believe the test riders might be able to test it, but not at these official testing days. So that at least shows that they brought something else to show them, unlike what seems to have happened at Honda. So Franco Morbidelli didn't have anything positive to say, basically. He didn't have any overly whelming thoughts on that Yamaha bike and what it was like. He didn't say anything about whether the exhaust was a step forward, if the new chassis was actually. He did mention that the new chassis didn't provide as much of a step forward as was needed, and this is the same from sort of vibe from Quartararo. So he also said that he expected a lot more from Yamaha, and that is, it sort of puts us in the same spot with Yamaha and Honda, that we just don't know. Well, we do know that 2024 is not going to be a smoking gun for either of them. And that puts Fabio Quartararo and Marc Marquez, two, I suppose, aliens that override the bike. That puts both of them in a very weird position, and it is going to make 2025 so spicy, because I strongly suspect that neither of those two riders are going to be on bikes. The bikes that they're on, they are going to be on bikes. Where they're going to go is going to be up for a lot of debate, but I don't think that Fabio is going to stay at Yamaha, and I don't think Mark's going to stay at Honda. So that's just a very brief overview, I suppose, of the Misano test. I do think that it was Honda who said, actually, I'm fairly confident Honda have said that we will get a answer out of Marc Marquez in Japan. So the reason I suspect he's doing that is because he wants to speak to the Honda head honchos before he does anything else. And so that does sort of incline me to see, if we're going to be waiting that long, then he's strongly considering leaving. And it could just be that we get right all the way up to Valencia, and that's when he decides, at that Valencia test, when he tries that 2024 bike. And that means that we're going to have a lot of hold-ups in this riders market, because Ducati will say that they don't need Marc Marquez, but they're also probably not going to turn down Marc Marquez. One, just to see what he could do on the bike. Two, because the sponsorship alone that he will bring would be incredible. And three, it would be a heck of a good storyline for MotoGP when we're in a time that's sort of lacking storylines. So let's preview India. So it does look like that the Indian Grand Prix is happening. I am so excited for all of the fans who have tickets. It's been debatable for this whole season if it's happening, but the FIM approved the track yesterday. They got all those formalities sorted. Admittedly, it does seem like the riders and the teams and journalists are seemingly struggling with their visa applications at the moment, but I do believe that'll all be solved in time with, to be frank, a bit of money thrown about. I'm really excited for this weekend because we could see the fastest times on a bike broken. We could be seeing up to 370 kilometers an hour, which is absolutely terrifying and absolutely so exciting. As always, I'm hoping all the pilots come out safe and uninjured. And because I've spoken so much about the testing, I'm just going to jump straight in to my predictions. So this one is obviously a very, very hard one to predict because we haven't been to this track before. None of these pilots have, years of experience at this track. And so we're jumping into unseen territory. So I suppose in my predictions, it just really is a stab in the dark. So we're going to start with Moto 3. For P3, I put Jaime Masia. I think, he seems to be building a lot of momentum lately, and I'm just feeling positive about it. In P2, I put Denise Onchu. This one I'm not overly confident in because there is a very long straight, and Denise is not great on the straights, probably because of his size, being quite tall. But yeah, I'm still quite confident because he's got so much momentum behind him, like Masia does. So that would be quite interesting. In P1, I'm putting David Munoz. I think that it's going to be his weekend. I think as long as he doesn't get yeeted by Denise Onchu again, then he should be able to secure that P1 spot. Now, Moto 2. In P3, I'm putting Pedro Acosta because I don't think you can deny this man a podium, even at a racetrack that we know nothing about. In P2, I'm putting someone who found his form again in Misano. Maybe it's because he really likes the track, but I think hopefully we're going to see a bit of a turnaround again now from Tony Arbolino. So I put him in P2. He did, like I said, find some form last week, so I'm hoping he brings that forward onto this week. And in P1, I'm voting for it. I'm really, really hoping it happens. I'm going for Aaron Canet. Come on, boy. You know you got it in you. There's just that little bit of something missing, and I'm hoping a brand new track will give it to you. And I do think that once he wins his first one, he will get a few more wins under his belt. I'm really, really hoping for it. I'll have an absolute party if he does. I'll show up to work and I'll probably still be a couple of drinks too many. But, you know, it'll be Aaron Canet's first win. I'm sure my boss will understand. Okay, no, he doesn't. He's not a MotoGP fan. In fact, he's not a motorsport fan. He supports rugby. And it's like, okay, well, imagine if the Warriors won. You know? I'm sure you'd celebrate too. That'll be my excuse. And then I just hope to not get fired. So, sorry, I digress. On to MotoGP. So in the sprint, I think in P3, we're going to see Alex Marquez. So I think a new track will actually suit Alex quite well. I think it'll be quite beneficial, especially with his riding style. Here we have a huge variety of things on this track. So we've got a massive straight, we've got some sharp corners, we've got some corners that follow corners that follow corners. It's actually like, I'm really interested to see this track because it's so variable. And with those long straights, the Ducatis are going to be absolutely dominant. But on those tight and turny corners, other than Pecco, who is incredible on the brakes, I think that maybe the Aprilias and the KTMs will gain some ground there. So that's just my theory anyway. In P2 in the sprint, I've put Marco Bezzecchi. I think that he's going to be quite boosted by his performance when he was injured, and I think that that's really going to help him this week. In P1, I have put Jorge Martin. So coming off the back of his double delight in Misano, I think that he's just going to be strong, he's going to be confident, and he's going to take the win. What I don't think Jorge Martin is going to do, though, is be on the podium in the MotoGP race. I'm not too sure why I've gone this way. I think that something about it's going to cause him to maybe fall out of contention on that Sunday. I think he's going to be about P6 or P7. I don't know why I think that, but that's just an even wilder prediction that's probably going to be horribly wrong. And I'll tell you next week. Or I'll just completely forget about it, because that generally seems to be what I do. I make these predictions and then forget who I predicted. And then that's it. But the podium for this main race, the Sunday race, I have put in P3 Alicia Spargaro. So like I said, I think some of the corners and the tighter parts of the track are going to suit the Aprilias and the KTMs. I think Alicia's going to podium. And I think in P2, we're going to get a satellite Aprilia podium in the form of Miguel Oliveira. I think that the kid's just got crazy talent. I think he's going to be really boosted by that testing and that riding of the 2023 Aprilia, and so I think that's just really going to suit him. In P1, I've put Alex Marquez. I think he's going to have a wonderful weekend. I think he's going to get his win, and it would just be so, so wholesome, and I'd actually really love to see his brother celebrating with him. One of the things I really want to see before Mark retires is Alex Marquez on the top step of the podium and his brother on another step. I just think it would be so wholesome, because Mark always says that Alex is the better rider and the faster rider, and so I just want to see that in podium form. So that's just my quick interpretation. It's a much shorter pod than normal because it's not a race weekend. So I'll see you next time.